Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a film from earlier this year that I finally got to see, Train to Busan presents Peninsula. Before we begin, let me know in the comments if you were looking forward to this or what your thoughts were if you've seen it already. And make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews. It helps me out immensely if you do that. Also, if you're new here and you like movies, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases and some classics. But now, let's jump right into it. This takes place 4 years into a zombie outbreak that has ravaged South Korea. The Korean Peninsula has been devastated, and a former soldier who escaped and is riddled with guilt is given a mission to go back and locate a truck containing a giant sum of money, along with 3 others. The 4 individuals must now do what they can to survive as the outbreak is at its worst and the zombies are more rampant than ever. This is the standalone sequel to the 2016 hit Train to Busan, which I also just did a review for and will leave a link to in case you missed it. This is set in the same universe, but focuses on an entirely different set of characters, so you technically don't need to watch the first one in order to see this, but you really should because it's fantastic. The writer-director of that film, Yeon Sang-ho, returns for this, which had me really excited as I love the original Train to Busan. Unfortunately, lightning did not strike twice. While I wasn't expecting this to be exactly as good as the first movie, I was pretty disappointed as this just isn't inferior, but is actually kinda mediocre. I don't think it's terrible, which is something I've heard a number of people say, but given just how masterful Train to Busan was, this is a major step down for sure. Now, while this film is essentially disconnected from the first movie, it's still technically a sequel, and it's still within this same universe. So the first Train to Busan took place mainly in one setting and was extremely claustrophobic, and because of its limited setting, it had to come up with some really creative scenarios. Now, I'm not expecting this to be an exact replica of that film, as then it would just be cliched and predictable. So this sets out to do what sequels should be doing, and that's expanding upon the first film and making things bigger and raising the stakes, and I appreciated that about this movie. And there were some fairly well done action scenes. They weren't executed as well as the first movie, they weren't as creative, but for what they were kind of fun at times. If you're a huge fan of zombie movies, I think there may be just enough to satisfy you. Though I'm not a die-hard zombie fanatic, so to me, they were fine. Where this suffered for me was the story. While, as I said, it's great this expanded upon the first film, it opened things up so much to the point that it seemed to care more about explosive set pieces and cool action scenes, and it lost what also made the first film so enjoyable, which was its heart. The characters in the first movie were all very memorable. They each had their own character arc, there was a lot of nuance to most of them, they also expressed views that gave way to some great social commentary, and I enjoyed rooting for most of them, and I really enjoyed hating others who were being openly antagonistic. However, the characters here didn't elicit that same level of emotion from me. Truthfully, I found these characters to be pretty bland. There's an attempt to make you connect with them, like we explore a little bit of this guilt that this soldier faces, and there's this family he comes across who also play a fairly big role in the film, so they try touching upon that parent-child relationship again like they did in the first movie. The thing is, their arcs aren't all that interesting or part of what drives this movie forward. A lot of the motivations driving characters forward in the first film was how some looked out for their own interests and how they butt heads with other characters who were trying to look out for everyone, and there were some truly unique dynamics there. Here, this is mainly just a bunch of characters out to get some money. That's what drives this whole thing forward. There's not much here where these characters are personally driven by something other than to survive and get the money. And because of that, it felt more like this film was leaning into combining heist thriller elements with action horror zombie thrills. And even though there were characters who were close here, that familial interpersonal aspect of the film, what little there was, felt like an afterthought. It attempts to replicate some of the more emotional beats that were so devastating in the first film, but because there was less of a focus on forming a connection with these characters, these moments didn't feel earned. The movie felt hollow in many regards, and unfocused too. While the first film contained characters moving all around this train and you were able to keep track of things, this film has characters moving all across this island in all these different locations, and it just felt all over the place at times. There were moments where it felt a little difficult to keep up. And the first film, despite now having the popularity of a blockbuster, didn't feel like a blockbuster. That wasn't what they set out to do with that film. This, however, does feel like it set out to be a blockbuster, and even though it's not made by a major Hollywood studio, there's still this Hollywood feel to it. Like, we'll have scenes here and there where characters are interacting with English-speaking characters. It tries to emphasize at times the global ramifications of this outbreak. Plus, there's a heavier emphasis on special effects, a lot of which didn't look that good. And even though these are the same type of zombies from the first film, they don't look as frightening this time around. There weren't that many moments, if at all, where chills were sent down my spine or I felt just how terrifying these things were. They looked like boring, generic zombies, and that, combined with everything else I mentioned, just made this a totally disappointing experience. I don't don't hate this movie, but I didn't particularly care for it either. It didn't do anything too egregious, but it also doesn't do much that allows us to really connect with the story or the characters. It has some fairly decent action scenes, and I think it might be enough that will satisfy big fans of zombie movies. Personally though, this is nothing I find myself revisiting. It just felt hollow, generic, and at times, kind of boring. Train to Busan presents Peninsula gets a 5.5 out of 10. Very disappointed this wasn't better. Even when I heard mixed things about it or terrible things about it, I tried not to pay attention to them, but it happens. I am excited to see what this director does next though, and I gotta check out his back catalog, as I see a lot of his films have otherwise received fairly high reviews. So hopefully this was just a misstep, but we'll see. Let me know though, did you see Peninsula, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like it more than the first movie, or less than the first movie? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you next time.